What if I told you your child may already know the answer before they even ask the question? Think about that for a moment. If they already know, why ask? Every parent has lived this moment. Can we go now? When is grandma coming? Are you picking me up after school? You answer. A minute later, they ask again. By the fifth time, it's easy to think, were they even listening? But what if the question you're hearing isn't the question your child is actually asking? Because children don't always ask questions because they need answers. Sometimes they ask questions because they need calm. And once you understand the difference, those repeated questions stop feeling like a test of your patience and start becoming one of the clearest windows into your child's mind. Today, we're going to open that window. At first, the answer seems obvious. Children forget things. Their memory is still developing. So yes, sometimes they genuinely don't remember what you just told them. But that explanation doesn't fit every situation. Have you ever answered your child only to hear the exact same question 30 seconds later? Sometimes they can even repeat your answer correctly and then ask the question again anyway. If they remembered your answer, why ask again? Because memory explains some repeated questions, but not all of them. To understand the rest, we first need to understand something adults rarely think about: how a child's brain experiences uncertainty. Imagine you're waiting for the result of an important job interview. You've already done everything you can. Now, all you can do is wait. Even though nothing has changed, you find yourself checking your phone again. Not because you forgot, because uncertainty is uncomfortable. Children experience uncertainty in much the same way. The difference is, they haven't yet learned how to manage it. Adults can remind themselves, "I'll know soon." Children can't. So instead of trying to calm themselves, they look for predictability. That's why you hear questions like, "Are we leaving now? Is Daddy coming home today? Can we go after dinner?" Each question is an attempt to make the future feel a little clearer, a little less uncertain. Your answer helps, but only for a moment. Because predictability isn't the only thing your child is searching for. There's another reason those same questions keep coming back. And once you understand it, those repeated questions begin to make much more sense. If uncertainty were the whole story, one clear answer should be enough. But it isn't. So what keeps bringing the question back? The answer has less to do with the words you say and far more to do with something your child quietly borrows from you without either of you even realizing it. If uncertainty were the only reason children ask the same question, one clear answer should be enough. But you've probably noticed, it rarely is. So what happens after you've already answered? Imagine you're on an airplane. The flight is smooth, until suddenly the plane begins to shake. Almost instinctively, people look toward the flight attendants. Why? The turbulence hasn't stopped. Nothing has changed. But we're searching for something. If the flight attendants stay calm, we feel calmer too. Children do something very similar. When they ask, "Are we leaving now?" or "Are you coming back after work?" they aren't only listening to your answer. They're quietly asking another question. Do you still seem calm? Because before children learn how to regulate their own emotions, they borrow calm from the adults they trust. Your confidence becomes their confidence. Your certainty becomes their certainty. Sometimes the reassurance doesn't come from what you say. It comes from how you say it. A calm, "Yes, we'll leave after lunch," does more than provide information. It tells your child, nothing has changed. everything is okay. And for many children, that's exactly what they needed to hear. But even this isn't the whole story, because sometimes children ask the same question even when they already seem calm. So what else could be happening? The answer is hidden inside the question itself. Young children experience emotions just as deeply as adults. The difference is, they often don't have the words to describe them, so their feelings come out in another form. Questions, "Are you picking me up after school?" might actually mean, "I'm worried you'll forget me." "Can we stay home today?" might really mean, "I'm nervous about school." The words sound like requests for information, but underneath, they're asking for reassurance. Think about the last time you felt anxious. Did hearing a logical explanation instantly make the feeling disappear? Probably not, because information speaks to the mind, but reassurance speaks to emotion. Children need both, and this is where many conversations quietly go wrong. Parents answer the question, but the feeling underneath never gets answered. So the question comes back, not because the child wasn't listening, but because the emotion is still searching for comfort. Once you recognize that, something else suddenly makes sense. Why the simple phrase, "I've already told you," often has the exact opposite effect of what we intended. This is where many parents become frustrated, not because they don't love their child, but because parent and child are having two completely different conversations. The parent is answering the words. The child is asking from a feeling. And until those two meet, both leave feeling misunderstood. So how do we respond in a way that actually helps? That's where the biggest shift happens. Let's go back to a moment almost every parent has experienced. Your child asks, "Are we leaving now?" You answer. A minute later, they ask again. Eventually you respond, "I've already told you." It's a completely understandable reaction. After all, you did answer. So why doesn't it stop the questions? Because from your child's perspective, the conversation was never just about information. Imagine waiting outside an operating room while someone you love is in surgery. A friend tells you, "Everything will be okay." For a moment, you feel calmer. But 10 minutes later, the worry returns. You haven't forgotten what they said. The feeling simply came back. Children experience something very similar. When they ask the same question again, they're often trying to find that feeling of calm one more time. So when we respond with, "I already answered that," the information may be correct, but the emotion is still waiting to be comforted. Sometimes the child stops asking, but that doesn't always mean they feel better. It may simply mean they've learned that asking again isn't welcome. And that's an important difference, because quiet isn't always the same as calm. The answer isn't repeating yourself forever, and it isn't allowing endless reassurance. The goal is helping your child feel understood. Imagine your child asks, "Are you picking me up after school?" Instead of answering immediately, pause for a moment. You might say, "You've asked me that a few times today. Are you worried I won't come?" Or simply, "It sounds like you really want to make sure I'll be there." Notice the difference. You're no longer responding only to the words. You're responding to the feeling behind them. And something remarkable happens when children feel understood. Their emotions begin to settle, not because the problem disappeared, but because they no longer have to carry the feeling alone. There's another way to make repeated questions less likely. Reduce uncertainty before it grows. Simple routines, a countdown before leaving, or saying, "First we'll finish lunch, then we'll put on our shoes, then we'll go to the park." To an adult, that may seem unnecessary, to a child, it's a roadmap. And roadmaps make uncertain journeys feel much less frightening. Over time, something beautiful begins to happen. The repeated questions become less frequent, not because your child was told to stop asking, but because they slowly stopped needing to. At this point, you might be wondering, so is every repeated question really about anxiety? Not always. Sometimes children genuinely forget. Sometimes they're simply excited. But when the same question keeps coming back, especially around something important, it's worth asking yourself one question before you answer. What feeling might be hiding underneath these words? Because sometimes that one question changes everything. Let's go back to the question we asked at the very beginning. If your child already knows the answer, why do they keep asking? Now we know. Sometimes they're trying to make the future feel more predictable. Sometimes they're borrowing your calm because they haven't learned to create their own. And sometimes their question is simply carrying a feeling they don't yet have the words to express. That's why the same words can mean different things on different days. Are you coming back? May not be asking for information. It may be asking, can I trust that everything will be okay? Can we go now? May not be about impatience. It may simply be a child trying to make an uncertain moment feel a little more certain. When we begin to hear the feeling behind the words, we stop seeing repeated questions as a problem to fix and start seeing them as an invitation to connect. One day, without you even realizing it, those repeated questions will begin to disappear. Not because your child suddenly became better at listening, not because you finally found the perfect response, but because something inside them quietly changed. They became a little more comfortable with uncertainty, a little better at putting feelings into words, a little more able to calm themselves when life didn't go exactly as planned. In other words, they slowly stopped needing to borrow your calm because they had started building their own. And that's one of the quietest successes in parenting. It doesn't happen all at once. You won't notice it on a particular Tuesday. There won't be a moment when your child announces, I don't need reassurance anymore. It happens little by little, question by question, conversation by conversation, until one day you realize those questions aren't being asked anymore. Not because they stopped needing you, but because they had spent years learning from you. If this video helped you see your child's questions in a different light, I hope you'll share it with another parent who might need to hear it. And if you'd like to better understand the hidden emotions behind everyday childhood behaviors, consider subscribing. Because behind every behavior, there's a story. And sometimes, understanding that story changes everything.